Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be breaking down my top 36 running back rankings and tiers for week number 4 of the 2024 fantasy football season. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. Also, my updated rankings, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, kicker, and defense will be out on Patreon, $7.50 a month. The rankings will change as the days go on, so if you want the updated rankings, they're on Patreon. So without further ado, let's get into my week number 4 top 36 running back rankings and tiers. We begin with the first tier at the running back position for this week, and these are the no-brainer running back ones. These are the guys that you are going to start every single week, regardless of the matchups. They are some of the best running backs in fantasy football. At number 1, we have Saquon Barkley of the Philadelphia Eagles going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this week in Tampa. Saquon Barkley has been the RB1 in 2 out of 3 games, and the other game where he wasn't the RB1, he was the running back number 9. The Philadelphia Eagles offense could be without both Devontae Smith as well as AJ Brown. They're going to look to run the ball a ton. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense is not very good at all, so I think Saquon Barkley should be ranked as the RB1 in basically everyone's ranking. If you wanted to rank Breece or Kamara over him, or I guess any of the guys inside of this tier, I wouldn't argue too much with you, but I definitely think Saquon belongs at the top as the RB1. At number 2, we got Breece Hall of the New York Jumbo Jets going up against the Denver Broncos at home in MetLife, a wet dream matchup for Breece Hall. While the vultureism from Braylon Allen has definitely been a little bit frustrating, Breece Hall scored a touchdown in every single game this season and has been a top 13 running back in every single game. This is the best matchup he has had all season, and I definitely expect Breece Hall as one of the best running backs in the NFL, a guy that has gotten 5 or more targets in every single game to finish inside of the top 5. At number 3, we have Alvin Kamara of the New Orleans Saints going up against the Atlanta Falcons in Atlanta. There was some worries about his health with the hip/rib injury, but frankly, I do think he is going to be good to go. He comes out the season on fire, NBA Jam style, running back 6 and 1, followed by the running back 15 last week. That game up against the Eagles, though, was just very weird from both teams. Ultimately, Alvin Kamara is a guy that is going to see a boatload of touches game in and game out. He's a guy that could get 5 or more catches in every single game, and the matchup here being up against the Falcons defense, I definitely think Alvin Kamara could be the running back 1 on the week. Next up, we got Bijan Robinson going up against the Saints defense. Now, Bijan Robinson has looked good out there. He passed the eye test in week 1, week 2. Last week, not as hot, but he did end up finding the end zone. Bijan Robinson is a guy that, while I thought the offense would be a little bit better by this point in the season, I do think Kirk Cousins getting better and better every single week is going to continue to boost up Bijan Robinson. In the offseason, there was a lot of worry about Algier potentially taking touches away from Bijan, but that doesn't really appear to be the case. He's the clear running back 1 on an offense that could pop off for 30-plus points in this game. The matchup not being the best is what has him ranked outside of the top 3. At number 5, we got Jordan, the numbers Mason. What do they mean of the San Francisco 49ers going up against the New England Patriots? Now, his production has dipped off for fantasy football every single week. First game of the season, he's the running back 5, then the running back 11, then the running back number 24, but he hasn't had the best matchups on paper over the last couple of games. Now, the Patriots defense definitely isn't the best matchup either, but we did just see the Jets run a train on them last week, so I do think Jordan, the numbers Mason, what do they mean, has a great scenario here to finish inside of the top 6. The carries are going to be voluptuous. The targets might not be the most. He's like a 1, 2, 3 target type of guy per week. But ultimately, with the amount of carries that he gets, with the fact that the offense should be buzzing in this game, giving Jordan Mason multiple touchdown upside, I think he still belongs inside of the top tier. Final guy here is Kyren Williams. Now, last week, I was definitely worried about Kyren Williams because going up against the 49ers, when Puka's out, when Cooper Kupp is out, about, it basically, the writing was on the wall there, right? Everyone across America thought that the San Francisco 49ers were going to spit roast the Los Angeles Rams. And of course, that is exactly the opposite of what happens. The LA Rams win the game, and Kyren Williams scores not one, not two, but 3 fucking touchdowns in that game. He currently has 5 touchdowns on the season. He is one of the few running backs in the NFL that is a true workhorse running back. And while the matchup up against the Bears, I don't think is necessarily the best on paper, Kyren Williams has proven to us through the first 3 games of the season that he belongs inside of the top tier. Next up, we move on into the slightly lower tier no-brainer running back ones. There is a dip, in my opinion, from the top tier to the second tier, but it's not all that crazy of a dip, in my opinion. So next up here, we got James Conner at number 7, going up against the Washington Commanders. Now, James Conner is a guy that, when healthy, is basically a top 12 running back every single game. No ifs, ands, or buts like Miley Cyrus. And James Conner did exactly that in week 1 and week number 2. But in week number 3, up against the Detroit Lions, he was silent, running back number 53. Now he gets an easy comeback narrative matchup up against a defense that can't stop a nosebleed in the Commanders. So I think James Conner should dominate 50 Shades of Grey style here up against that defense. Next up, we got James Let Him Cook of the Buffalo Bills going up against the Baltimore Ravens this week in Baltimore on Sunday Night Football. Now, James Cook was a guy that I was given the gawk 9,000 special to all summer long, talking about how if, hey, the touchdowns do go his way with the usage of James Conner being so much better, or not James Conner, James Cook being so much better towards the end of last season after they fired their offensive coordinator. And everything that I thought was going to happen came true. James Cook is now finding the end zone, 4 touchdowns over the last 2 weeks, top 12 running back in both games. And while the Ravens defense, I don't think is necessarily a pushover, I don't think they're as good as people thought that they would be. And James Cook looks great out there. The Buffalo Bills offense looks A1 like the steak sauce. So James Cook belongs inside of the top 12. Next up, we got Devon Achane, running back of the Miami Dolphins. Now, as a Dolphins fan, I'm going to tell you that I believe that Tyler Huntley will be the starting quarterback of this team. From everything that I've read, from what Mike McDaniel has said, it feels like that's going to be the case. You can kind of hear it in Mike McDaniel's voice when he's talking about the quarterback situation. He's kind of doing the Matrix thing where they slow down and they dodge the bullets. He's dodging every single question about it. I don't think Skylar Thompson will be good to go. I think it is going to be Tyler Huntley. Now, regardless of who the quarterback is, if it's me, you, Tim Boyle, or Tyler Snoop Huntley, Devon Achane is going to be fine. I get he shit the bed last week, but he is going to be the only piece of this offense that I'm truly 100% confident in before Tua returns. Now, the offensive line is a turnstile. They are not very good, but when they do get the blocking, Devon Achane is a guy that's able to bust off a 60-yard touchdown, a 70-yard touchdown, an 80-yard touchdown. The guy is speed like he's Lightning McQueen. He's a proficient pass catcher, 5 or more targets in every single game. And while the Dolphins offense was completely limp dick in Seattle, I expect them to look better now. Do I expect them to look like one of the best offenses in the NFL without Tua Tagovailoa? Of course not. I think up against the Tennessee Titans defense, Achane will be able to bounce back. At number 10, we got Derrick Henry, Tractor Cito. Last week, Derrick Henry had the Dallas Cowboys defense called him Poppy all game long. Derrick Henry was the running back number 3. 2 touchdowns in that game, over 150 total yards. This game, though, the game script's going to be a lot different, right? The Baltimore Ravens, for 3/4 of that game, literally had the Dallas Cowboys defense bent over a table. This week, I think it's going to be a lot different, more of a competitive game all around, and that could lead to negative game script for Derrick Henry if the Baltimore Ravens fall behind to the wagon that is the Buffalo Bills. So that's what has him ranked here outside of that S tier, the top tier running back range, but I still do like Derrick Henry a ton. But we all know that if the game script gets flipped on its head and this does become a game where they need to throw the ball a lot more, Derrick Henry's value will be immensely deflated. At number 11, we got Jahmyr Gibbs of the Detroit Lions going up against the Seahawks, top 15 running back in every single game this season, and that's what I'm going to expect out of him every single week. Now, last week, he didn't have a single target up against the Arizona Cardinals in Arizona, which is definitely out of the ordinary for Jahmyr Gibbs, as I do expect him to see at least a couple of targets. He had 6 targets in week 1, 7 in week number 2, and like I said, 0 in week 3. The Seahawks defense is definitely underrated, but Jahmyr Gibbs is one of the safest bets at the running back position to score 16 plus points any given week, and I feel as though he deserves a ranking inside the top 12. At number 12, we got a revenge game of Cold like Minnesota running back Aaron Jones going up against his old pals, his old buddies, the Green Bay Packers, and Aaron Jones has been looking mighty fine. Now, week 1, running back 11. Week 2, up against the Niners. I expected a come-down game, and he did that. Running back number 29. Then he follows that up as the running back 6 last week up against the Texans, rushing for over 100 yards, damn near 150 all-purpose yards with a touchdown. The Packers defense kind of mid, so I think Aaron Jones will be able to put up yet another top 12 performance. Next up, we got Jonathan Taylor of the Indianapolis Colts going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, in any other matchup, Jonathan Taylor has shown us this season, he comes out the gate, Week 2, looking better. Week 3, looking rock hard like your cock off some Viagra. So now the painting has been painted, right? We can now see what the upside is. Top 5 running back last week. If he was going up against the Jaguars, who he's playing next week, I'd be sitting here on my knees giving him the Hawk to a special. But, and this is a big but, shout out to Violet Myers, Jonathan Taylor is now going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers, one of the toughest defenses in the NFL, and I think Anthony Richardson's probably going to throw a couple of picks in this game, so the game script is going to change and not go the way of Jonathan Taylor. Ultimately, Jonathan Taylor is so good, I can't bury him too much, but I also don't want to rank him super high because this game does reek of disappointment. I considered dropping him down into the next tier, but honestly, he's so good that I feel like he should be fine regardless. Final guy inside of the slightly low tier, no-brainer running back ones is Brian Robinson Jr. Austin Eckler's out with the concussion. They do have other running backs behind Brian Robinson. It's not like he's going to go out there and play 100% of the snaps like he's Christian McCaffrey or something, or Jordan Mason, but Brian Robinson Jr. has had multiple good games this season. He scored 2 touchdowns. He had a game where he rushed for over 130 yards, and he's a solid pass catcher. Now, his targets were getting siphoned away by Austin Eckler, but without Austin Eckler in a great matchup up against the Arizona Cardinals, I think this is going to be the best game we get out of Brian Robinson Jr. yet. His best finish was back in week 1 as the running back 14, and I believe he should finish in that top 10, like running back 10 to 14, 15, 16 range. So I feel very confident in my ranking as the running back 14, one of the most underrated running backs in the NFL. I get the offensive line is trash, so that does somewhat hurt him, but this is an offense that could put up a very high point total. This could be the highest scoring game of the week. The Arizona Cardinals and the Washington Commanders could go toe to toe in this game and have the most exciting game of the week. And it's definitely the most exciting game of the 4 o'clock slate, because the 4 o'clock slate outside of this game reeks to high heaven. So next up, we move into the high-end running back 2 tier. Now, Zach Charbonnet, I believe, will be the starting running back for the Seahawks this week. Now, am I going to bet my house, bet my YouTube channel, bet this, bet that on Kenneth Walker being out? No, I'm not going to bet that because I think it is a possibility. But the most likely scenario, I think, plays out with Zach Charbonnet as the running back 1. He's been a top 8 running back in back-to-back weeks, so there's no reason to truly bury him at this point. Zach Charbonnet is on an offense that looks very, very good. The Dolphins defense did a great job of slowing them down in the second half last week, but frankly, it didn't matter as Charbonnet scored 2 fucking touchdowns. It was the running back 7. Is Charbonnet as good as Walker? In my opinion, no, but they're definitely close in terms of skill set. Zach Charbonnet is a decent enough pass catcher 4 or 5 targets in back-to-back games. This is another game that could be very, very, very high scoring and push Zach Charbonnet into the top 12. So again, while these guys are a dip down from the guys ranked ahead of them, it hasn't been that crazy of a dip yet. Once we get down deeper and deeper into the rankings, that's where there's a large separation from one tier to another. For instance, if you're like, Nick, Zach Charbonnet should be in the 2nd tier, I'm not going to sit there in the comment section and argue with you. But if you said, for instance, Nick, Jerome Ford, who, spoiler alert, is in the 5th tier, I think he belongs up here, I would call you fucking crazy. Next up, we got Josh Jacobs of the Green Bay Packers. Now, Josh Jacobs has been nothing short of a disappointment this season, running back 25, 23, and 50. Now, last week he came into the game with a back injury, and then he was getting work early, and then it kind of felt like he didn't do anything for the second half of the game. Now, the fact that the team isn't the best at throwing the ball with Malik Willis under center does mean that the defenses are able to key in on Josh Jacobs. It's not like when Jordan Love is out there and the defense is scared that he's just going to rip a fucking nuclear war missile, Kim Jong-un style, over the defense, 60-yard bomb to Romeo Doubs or Christian Watson or Dontavian Wicks, Jaden Riley Reed. Instead, they're just focused on stopping the short passes and stopping the run game, and that does hurt Josh Jacobs. The fact that he's going up against the Vikings hurts Josh Jacobs, but Josh Jacobs is also another guy that's just really fucking good, so it's hard for me to bury him much further than this. Next up, we got Zach Moss going up against the Carolina Panthers in Carolina. The Cincinnati Bengals offense is looking like they figured things out. Now, I get they lost to the Commanders, absolutely embarrassing, but that's more on the fact that the Bengals defense is trash compared to the fact that the Bengals offense is trash because Joe Burrow, Joe Shiesty moved the ball with ease. The Carolina Panthers defense, I know they stood on their head last week. They stood tall last week, but ultimately they don't have a good defense at all. I would say this is a 5-star GTA matchup, a great matchup for Zach Moss, who was the running back 9 last week. Now, they still use Chase Brown. It's not like Chase Brown has been completely phased out of this offense, but with a great matchup up against the Panthers, I'm going to push Zach Moss up the rankings because I do think that if Andy Dalton, the Red Rifle, plays great, this could be a game that the Bengals actually end up losing and is a very high-scoring showing, which will help out Moss. Next up, we got David Montgomery going up against the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle. I said all summer long that everyone needs to hop on the David Montgomery bandwagon. Everyone was doing tricks on the meat of Jahmyr Gibbs, and I was also doing that, metaphorically, of course. But David Montgomery was a guy that I liked a ton because if something was to happen to Gibbs, knock on wood, we don't root for injury, then David Montgomery would instantly catapult himself, trebuchet himself, into being a top 5, top 8, top 10 running back weekly. If Gibbs stays healthy, David Montgomery is a safe running back 2 every single week. He's been the running back 17, 13, and 8 every game of this season. He's also found the end zone in every single game. But before we break down David Montgomery, as well as the rest of the running backs here, I would like to give you guys a quick word from our friends and our sponsor over at Underdog. Now, if you guys are new to Underdog and click on the link in the video description or use promo code Notorious, you receive the free pick for tonight, Thursday Night Football. Dak Prescott higher than half of a total yard. You might be thinking, Nick, I'm watching this after Thursday. That game already happened. Then you receive a different free pick, very similar to Prescott, higher than half of a total yard. You're going to match this with one of the players on the Giants or one of the players playing on Sunday or Monday. If both of those picks hit, you receive 3 times what you put into your pick'em. If you do multiple picks instead of just 2, maybe do 3, 4, or 5, then the payout will increase. By clicking on the link in the video description or using promo code Notorious, you not only get the free pick, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash if you're a first-time depositor. So make sure you use promo code Notorious to sign up on Underdog or use the link in the video description. Again, if the Dak Prescott one isn't available because they already played on Thursday Night Football, you receive something very, very similar. So David Montgomery, top 17 running back in every single week. So we're going to rank him in the top 18 every single week. It is truly beautiful to watch. The offensive line there is a brick wall, and David Montgomery is able to benefit heavily from that. Even with the kind of woes of this team, of the offense, David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs have both been fine through it all. When they're losing, when they're winning, doesn't matter. David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs have been great. Now, you would be foolish to rank Montgomery over Gibbs, but Montgomery can outscore Gibbs any single game. He has multiple touchdown upside. They love to use him as a wrecking ball. Shout out Miley Cyrus in the red zone on the goal line. So David Montgomery is a guy that you got to rank inside the top 20. To close out the third tier here, the high-end running backs twos, we got Chuba Hubbard of the Carolina Panthers. Now, I almost didn't want to believe last week that the Red Rifle would completely turn things around. And I'm also very hesitant to sit here and say that because Andy Dalton had one great game, that Andy Dalton has rewinded the clock back to the early 2010s, that this offense is now going to be high octane, because I think that's insane to think. It just is. But as long as the offense isn't completely bottom of the barrel, and that's what was holding Chuba Hubbard down. You can't run the ball if your team is getting fucking devoured every single game. When you're down big, you cannot run the ball. Now, the offense should at least be competitive. Now, he had 16 rushes through the first two games, 6 and 10 rushes. And then last week, he had more than that with 21 up against the Raiders. He was the running back number 4. Now, again, I'm not going to sit here and go crazy and say, oh, you got to rank him inside the top 10 again, but he definitely does have that top 12 upside, especially up against the Bengals defense. Now we move on into the lower tier running back 2s and the high-end running back number 3s. Now, it does pain me to say this, but Travis Etienne does not deserve to get ranked any higher than this. Why? Is it because Travis Etienne has magically fallen off? No, he's still averaging 4.6 yards per carry. The problem is the Jaguars' offense is dead on arrival. What we've seen out of 3 weeks is nothing short of being straight up ass. Terrible. They are so bad offensively. Trevor Lawrence is running around behind the backfield like a chicken, behind the offensive line like a chicken with his head cut off. He threw a pick to Damar Hamlin. It was an embarrassing effort on Monday Night Football. And while the Texans defense hasn't really shown out this season, I do think the defense is better than they get credit for. And Etienne is yet to finish inside of the top 18. He's been the running back 28, 20, and 21. Is Etienne still good? Yes, but the offense has so many question marks, like a fucking Riddler clue, so I am not starting, I'm starting Etienne, I guess, but I'm not putting him in the range with the guys higher up to where I'm a lot more confident in. I definitely think there's a decent enough bump down from the high-end RB2s to the low-end running back 2, high-end wide running back 3 tier that we are in right now. Now, it's not a full-on fall-off, because once we get into that last tier, you are legitimately praying to the gods above that they get that touchdown. So after Etienne, we got J.K. Dobbins. Now, I love J.K. Dobbins, but facts are facts. J.K. Dobbins is now on a team that their best offensive lineman, Joe Alt, is not going to play. A quarterback, Justin Herbert, the pervert, might play. He might not play. If he plays, he's going to be hobbled. If he doesn't play, then it's Taylor Heineke. Now, is Taylor Heineke the worst backup quarterback? No. As a Dolphins fan, I would do unholy things to get Taylor Heineke onto the Dolphins to be our starting quarterback, because at least he's not a pussy like Skylar Thompson and would attempt to throw the ball down the field. But I digress. J.K. Dobbins is in a rough situation in a tough matchup. Now, he was a top 5 running back in back-to-back games early on in the season, and they are going to try their best to run the fuck out of the ball in this game. So Dobbins isn't going to completely fall off. He's not going to fall outside the top 30 like he did last week, but I definitely think the upside is capped by the offense and the matchup they have. At 22, we got Rachaad White. Now, a lot of people have gotten their shovels out, and they are ready to go dig the grave for Rachaad White, like that one boxer after he knocks the guy out. I forgot, is it Bivol who does that? I don't remember the boxer's name, who does the, no, it's Plant, Caleb Plant, who does the dig Plant. I guess that's kind of funny. He does the dig the grave fucking emote after he knocks you out, which is just absolutely fire. I'm glad I remembered his name. I'm more of a UFC head, 100% compared to boxing. I like the UFC way better. this is a fantasy football video. No one gives a rat's ass. But frankly, the reason why I like the UFC way better is because I could throw on the prelims and I enjoy it. Boxing prelims make you fucking fall asleep a majority of the time. So Rashad, and I'm not a boxing hater though. I watch a lot of boxing. Anthony Joshua got absolutely clapped on Saturday. I watched that. But Rashad White going up against the Eagles. Not the best matchup, but again, everyone was ready to bury Rashad White. There's so much Bucky Irving hype going around. Everyone's fondling that guy's nutsack. And while I think Bucky Irving might be better than Rashad White because Rashad White is as inefficient as it gets, based on everything I read and heard from Todd Bowles' press conference today, is that Rashad White is still the guy, and Bucky Irving's hurt and probably won't even end up playing in this game. So while maybe the end is near for Rashad White, I don't think it is time for his fantasy football metaphoric death just yet. The Eagles matchup isn't the best, but I do think he should still finish inside the top 24 due to his receiving upside. Next up, we got Tony Pollard, Tony P, going up against the Miami Dolphins in Miami. Hot start to the season. Week 3 up against the Packers, nothing. 12 at running back, 19, and then 49. That's no bueno, but I'm still pretty confident in Pollard up against the Dolphins' run defense. Will Levis is going to be the biggest deterrent towards Tony Pollard really having an elite season because the offense just isn't going to be holding very many leads this season. They're going to be down in games and you have to pivot away from the run. Now, Pollard's a good enough pass catcher to where he's going to be fine, but this is a great matchup for him. I've said this for years. It doesn't matter who the defensive coordinator is. It doesn't matter who's calling the plays. It doesn't matter if we assembled the 85 Bears on defense. If we had William the Fridge Perry coming at your ass, Tony Pollard, or not Tony Pollard, the Dolphins defense simply cannot stop the run. They will lock your pass game down. They'll be able to stop a lot of things, but they can never stop the run. And a guy like Tony Pollard might pop off inside of the top 12 this week. Next up, we got Ramondre Stevenson. Now, Ramondre Stevenson, he goes crazy. Week 1, week 2, top 12 running back. Follows that up against the Jets, which on paper was a fine matchup. Now, it wasn't mighty fine like Sydney Sweeney in Euphoria with their tits flopping around everywhere, but it was, looking good on paper. Everything's going to be fine. And then he gets 6 carries for 23 yards. Fumble! He fucks up his hand a little bit and doesn't do anything. The Patriots are getting dogged in the game. Now they're going up against the 49ers. Do I expect Ramondre to finish inside the top 12 again? No, but I don't think it's ready. Like, it's really a scenario where you need to full-on jump ship and panic on him yet. At number 25, we got Cam Akers of the Texans going up against the Jaguars. My assumption is that Joe Mixon doesn't play. Now, Joe Mixon could play. Again, not a scenario where I'd bet my life against him playing, whereas, like, Jordan Love, I really don't think he's going to play, but I think Joe Mixon could play. I think Kenneth Walker could play. Cam Akers, if he plays, this is the range he's in. He's nowhere near as good as Joe Mixon, but the Texans offense, I know they got pile-drived by the Minnesota Vikings. They got hit with the tombstone finisher. They got hit with the 619 Rey Mysterio. And obviously, that's just straight negative game script for Cam Akers, but he still found the end zone and was able to salvage his day. The Jaguars' defense is bottom of the barrel, so if Cam Akers is the starter, he belongs in this fringe top 24 range. If Akers is not the guy and Mixon is playing, then Mixon would move all the way up probably inside of the top 12 or just inside of that tier with like Jonathan Taylor, Brian Robinson, Derrick Henry up there in the slightly lower tier, no-brainer running back ones. Next up, we move to Monsieur Najee Harris of the Pittsburgh Steelers going up against the Colts in Indianapolis. Got hurt, had the sling on his arm, but he practiced in full on Thursday, so I guess there's no reason to worry. Jalen Warren seems like he's out, so Cordero Patterson, Arthur Smith's boy, will be backing up Najee Harris, so that'll be fun to watch. Najee Harris looks fine this season. He's averaging 3.8 yards per carry. I get he's not fantastic, but I think anyone with enough IQ points to rub together would have known that Najee Harris really isn't as good as we thought he would be coming out of Alabama. But going up against the Indianapolis Colts, I could look good running up against them, right? A guy like Air Bud, who's a dog and was a elite basketball player, he could go ahead and run a train on the Indianapolis Colts defense. So So I think Najee Harris should have his best game yet. He should have scored last week, but he slid on the 1 yard line to just solidify the W. If he would have scored a touchdown, would have finished a lot higher. Best game yet last week. He is a proficient pass catcher, especially without Jalen Warren. That's going to up his value as well. I had a big debate, the devil versus the angel on my shoulder on Najee versus Cam Akers. Ultimately, I leaned with Akers just because I like the offense better of the Texans compared to the Steelers. Plus, it's not like CJ Stroud is going to vulture a touchdown from Cam Akers, whereas Najee's touchdown could get stolen by Justin Fields. Final guy in this tier of the 4th tier here is Singletary. Singletary, top 24 running back in back-to-back weeks. Round of applause for him. Running back 10 in a rough spot up against the Browns last week. I do think I have him ranked a decent amount lower than consensus. ZCR's running back 20. I know Dallas just got spit roasted by Derrick Henry, and I think Devin Singletary could do that as well. But Devin Singletary also isn't Derrick Henry. It's not apples to apples. It's more apples to oranges. Devin Singletary's looked good this season, but Daniel Jones also runs the ball a bunch. And while the Dallas Cowboys defense hasn't looked the best, would it shock anyone if the Dallas Cowboys defense fully locked in up against the Giants? It's not like they're going to lose to the Giants. I'm pretty sure Daniel Jones, I saw something, he's 0-12 in primetime games. He just fucking sucks. So, Singletary, again, maybe I have him ranked a little bit too low for your liking. I still think he's a fine start, but something just tells me, something just reeks in this matchup of Devin Singletary not doing as good as people probably expect him to. Next up, we move into the talented running backs with questionable workloads. Next up, and I guess I don't know how talented Carson Steele really is. I just thought he looked pretty good last week. So I guess on 1 game sample size, I think he looks pretty good. Jerome Ford, F150. He's got the Q tag, which stands for questionable. He returned to practice on Thursday with the knee injury. His usage really just fucking confuses me. Week 2, he's not getting any snaps. Week 3, he gets 79% of the snaps. He doesn't look as effective last week, but he averages 5 yards per carry on the season. He's a 4 or 5, potential 6, 7, 8 target guy a week. Great matchup up against the Raiders. But again, you're kind of hoping on an offensive line that we really thought would be great and isn't all that great. You're hoping on Deshaun Watson to be able to move the ball effectively, which he just really doesn't do. So Jerome Ford's going to be fine. But with how fucking just questionable this team is as a whole, with the fact that he's coming into the game banged up, with the fact that his usage has been all over the place, I just can't rank him any higher. Carson stopped the steal going up against the Chargers. Now, he operated as the running back 1 last week. P. Ryan was kind of the second guy catching some balls. But they activated Kareem Hunt, which to me just seems like this is going to end up being a recipe for disaster. Now, if you want to rank Braylon Allen over Carson Steele, I'm not going to judge you. I just think Carson Steele is probably just going to see more touches, and he's on an offense that could score a bunch of points against the Chargers. Braylon Allen has scored a touchdown in 1 game. He scored 2 touchdowns. He had 11 carries last week for 55 yards. For Braylon Allen, your hope, your prayer here for fantasy is the Jets break the door down of the Denver Broncos. The Jets do a spinning back fist, a spinning elbow. They knee the opponent directly in the face, Jorge Masvidal style, and to Ben Askren, and it's a KO early, out for the fucking count, and they take Breece Hall out, and Braylon Allen scores a garbage time touchdown, or Braylon Allen busts off a huge run late. That's what you're hoping for. His usage is annoying for Breece Hall owners, but I don't think it's reached the range where you really want to give the Sukala Mink to Braylon Allen. He's a good player. He's a great player, I might add, but behind Breece Hall, there's clearly questions about how many touches he's going to get. Now, the rumor has it that Roschon Johnson is going to be that guy. He's going to get an extended look this week. They're going to give him more touches, which I pray to the gods is true, because DeAndre Swift, if I have to watch that motherfucker be the starting running back on a team ever again, I am ready to take a vacation off of watching football. Every time I watch a Bears game, which is every single week, I watch the Bears, I watch every team every single week, and I see DeAndre Swift trot out there, I just think, by God, this is going to be terrible. This is going to be a yard. This might be -7 yards. This might be 3 yards, but it's probably going to be like 1.5 yards. It's fucking embarrassing. He sucks. Roschon Johnson Is he the best running back ever? No. He's way better than Swift. And he's got a good matchup against the Rams. But there are big, huge questions with the workload. How valid is that report? Is it the facts? Factsonfile.com? Is it a little fugazi? I'm probably leaning towards more in the middle, where there's going to be too much Swift compared to what we would like, but Roshan gets enough touches to where if he scores, he has a good enough game. Roshan knows a guy. If he's available, pick him up off the waiver wire right now. Next up, we move to the praying to the gods for a touchdown tier. We got Rico. You might just get hit with the Rico McBilly going up against the Giants. Chase Brown up against the Panthers. Raheem up against the Titans, who may or may not play. Matthew Son against the Browns. And Samaje Perine up against the Chargers. We're going to breeze through this tier. Rico Dowdle looks way better than Zeke. But that's not hard to do because Zeke looks terrible. Rico Dowdle doesn't look the best either. The Cowboys team as a whole is just a big question mark. Giants matchup is great. You need a touchdown for Rico. He's yet to get 10 or more carries. He's been getting 5 targets in back-to-back weeks. Eventually, we're going to be confident in starting Rico, but just not yet. Chase Brown going up against the Carolina Panthers. Chase Brown, one of these games, is just going to score. It is basically a fucking guarantee because the guy is explosive. He's got that firework running potential. 7.4 yards per attempt on the season. The problem is the attempts are far and few in between. They've been ramping up. If he could get 7, 8 rushes in this game, a couple of targets, he could score. That's what you're hoping for. Next up, we got Raheem. Now, Raheem might play. He might not play. Now, it seems like he might return. Again, not bet my life on, not bet a lot of money on, not bet anything on. If someone offered me 50-50, I'll bet you $1. Maybe I'll bet $1 on it, right? But my normal bet, like when sports betting's 50, $100, I'm not throwing anywhere near that kind of a bet, you know, on my boy Poetan Alex Pereira. That's like a $300 hammer bet for my guy. He always wins. He always wins. Shout out Bobby Sylvester. Knock on wood, though. We hope that Poetan can win next Saturday. If anyone in the comment section is a Poetan hater, if you don't like Alex Pajeda, you can take it up with me, buddy, because I love that guy. No one cares, though. I don't know how many of you guys watch the UFC, how many of you guys get any of my references, like when I bring up like some random, unique UFC moment that happened. Like, I think a lot of you would know what that Jorge Masvidal point was that I made earlier, but I don't know if everyone knows that, to be completely honest with you. But who cares? We're 35 minutes in the fucking video, Nick. Hurry up, you fucking cocksucker! Raheem Mostert, if he plays, he didn't look good in week 1, but the upside's always there. Alexander Mattison has scored in 3 straight games, but he barely sees any touches, so that's why you're praying for the touchdown. Final guy is Samaje Perine. 7 points last week. Am I going to get something similar this week? Kareem Hunt coming back doesn't really boost my confidence too much on him. Guys ranked below Perine: Devontae, Zeke, Amir White, Ty Chandler, Swift, Daniel Wilson, Tajay Spears. But once you get past this range, it's just a straight up dart throw. You're just praying to the gods that something goes correct. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you did end up enjoying, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button like it owes you some money, Mike Tyson style. Leave a like on today's video if you did end up enjoying, whether you are new to the channel or not, and hit that notification bell. Ring the bell for me one time. Shout out to Spider-Man when he hits the bell and it knocks the Venom, or whatever the fuck that's called, the symbiote off of that guy. If you see the movie, you know you know. So hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, smash the notification bell like it owes you some money, and check out one of the videos on your screen if you haven't seen it already. Again, check out Underdog Fantasy. Link in the video description or promo code Notorious to get that free pick tonight. Dickie Dak Prescott higher than half of a total yard, plus the first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Love you guys all. Have a great one. As always, good boy!